Drunk driving has always been one of the most dangerous choices a person can make. But behind the statistics are real stories of lives cut short in ways that are almost impossible to believe. In this video, we'll look at 7 of the most shocking DUI car crashes ever recorded, cases that show how one reckless decision can turn into unthinkable tragedy. It was June 20th, 2024, on the A17 near North Rossby in Lincolnshire, England. 4 close friends, 17-year-old William Ray, along with Eddie Shore, Jack Prince, and Luke Wood, were driving home after watching an England football match at a pub. William was behind the wheel of a Ford Fiesta. The boys had just finished their A-level exams and were celebrating the start of summer. University plans were ahead, and life seemed full of possibility. At around 9:40 p.m., the Fiesta stopped at temporary traffic lights in a marked construction zone. Drivers had been given 3 clear warnings leading up to the lights, but behind them, another car was moving far too fast. That driver was 36-year-old Natasha Alarakia. She was in an Audi Q2 with her partner and her daughters, aged 7 and 12. Earlier that day, she had been drinking, and even during the drive, she sipped from a can of alcohol. On a 60-mile-per-hour road, she reached 96. One of her children was not even wearing a seatbelt. She did not notice the Fiesta until it was too late. Less than 2 seconds before impact, she hit the brakes. The Audi still crashed into the Fiesta at 70 miles per hour. The back of the Fiesta was crushed. William and Eddie were rushed to Queen's Medical Center in Nottingham. William died the next day, June 21st. Eddie died a day later, on June 22nd. Jack and Luke survived, but with severe, lasting injuries. Natasha's behavior after the crash shocked everyone. She lied to police, claiming someone named Jay from Sheffield had been driving and ran into a field. Officers even deployed an air unit searching for this fake suspect. When asked for a breath test, she denied driving, then finally admitted it. She laughed after taking the test, with her daughters present. This was not her first time in trouble. Natasha had 5 prior convictions for 12 offenses. In January 2023, she ran a red pedestrian light and hit a taxi. She had been banned from driving earlier in 2024 and was caught speeding a month before this crash. Even while on bail afterward, she was caught speeding again. In August 2025, at Lincoln Crown Court, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison and banned from driving for 12 years and 8 months. She must pass an extended retest before driving again. Her neighbors in Postwick described her as aggressive, loud, and constantly causing disturbances. Police were often called to her home. One neighbor recalled her casually admitting she had caused the crash without any sign of remorse. The families of William Ray and Eddie Shore were left devastated. William's mother, Sarah Barker, called him her only boy and visits his grave daily. His father, Stephen, said he still cries in his sleep. Eddie's parents described their grief as a life sentence. Jack Prince's injuries ended his dream of joining the Royal Air Force. Luke Wood spoke of the trauma he will carry forever. Natasha pleaded guilty to causing 2 deaths and serious injury by dangerous driving. She is now serving her sentence, separated from her children. 2 teenagers with bright futures never made it home that night. It was the early hours of October 1st, 2023, in Broadstairs, a quiet seaside town in Kent, England. Most people were asleep, but on Dumpton Park Drive, a night of drinking among friends was about to end in disaster. The victim was just 2 days from his 19th birthday. His name was Ethan Entwistle. Ethan was known as a gentle, kind young man, loyal to his family and friends. That night, he went out with 3 others, 20-year-old Colby Hammond, Mason Anderson, and his best friend, Benjamin Brazil. The group began drinking late on September 30th, first in a shed around 11 p.m., then at a local pub until about 1:30 a.m. Not ready to stop, they drove to Ramsgate, where they stayed out until 3 a.m. Colby, the driver, had promised to stop drinking before driving back, but later admitted to paramedics that he had consumed several drinks. Still, He got behind the wheel of his Seat Ibiza, while the others, too intoxicated to argue, went along. The trip back to Broadstairs was only 2.5 miles, but Colby drove recklessly. Data from the car showed more than half the journey was above the speed limit. At one point, he hit 75 miles per hour in a 30 zone and even drove the wrong way down a one-way street. In the back seat, Mason Anderson shouted for him to slow down. Moments later, Colby lost control at around 61 to 63 miles per hour and slammed into a tree. The impact crushed the front passenger side, where Ethan was sitting. The seat was mangled, the roof collapsed, and his airbag had been switched off. His injuries were catastrophic and could not be survived. Colby and Brazil managed to climb out. Anderson was trapped with serious chest injuries. Colby collapsed nearby, reportedly saying, "I think I'm going to prison now." Brazil pulled his best friend from the wreckage and performed CPR while Anderson called 999. Paramedics arrived and tried to resuscitate Ethan for nearly an hour, but at 4:30 a.m., he was declared dead. Police arrested Colby at the scene. Months later, at Canterbury Crown Court, more than 30 people attended sentencing. In June 2025, Colby admitted to causing death by dangerous driving. On August 28, 2025, he received 7 years in prison, serving at least 2/3 and a 6-year driving ban after release. Judge Simon James told him he was driving at extreme speeds while over the legal alcohol limit, noting this wasn't a one-time mistake, but a habit. He said Ethan's death came from Colby's reckless disregard for safety. Ethan's mother, Keena, described him as her miracle baby. His last words to her were, "Love you, Momsy." In court, she recalled the injuries she saw on her son's body and said she should have been celebrating his birthday, not grieving him. Since then, she has fought for new laws, including restrictions on young drivers. Her petition has gained over 100,000 signatures, though lawmakers have not yet acted. For Keena, the sentence didn't matter as much as hearing Colby accept responsibility. Ethan's friends also spoke, recalling the fear before the crash and their failed attempts to save him. Investigators concluded the tragedy was caused by Colby's decision to drive after drinking, ignoring warnings. As one officer put it, a life was lost, and the community is left mourning. It was April 25, 2021, in Hillsborough County, Florida. A small group of young people had been drinking together after a family gathering. Among them was 24-year-old Jennifer Carvajal, her cousin, Pedro Carvajal, Pedro's girlfriend, Lexia Gonzalez. By the end of the night, tragedy struck. What made it worse, Jennifer had been here before. Back in 2014, when she was only 16, Jennifer caused a crash that took the life of a man named Keith Allen Davis. At that time, she was driving a Lincoln Navigator at 55 miles per hour with no license, no insurance, and with alcohol in her system. She ran a red light, hitting Davis's Toyota and sending it into a concrete divider. Davis, a 52-year-old newspaper delivery man, was critically hurt and later passed away. Jennifer admitted fault, pleaded no contest in adult court, and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. She was released and placed on probation, promising to do better. But 7 years later, she repeated the same behavior. Jennifer's background revealed deep struggles. At 9 years old, she was diagnosed with a sexually transmitted disease, uncovering years of abuse by male relatives. Her father was later arrested for harming another family member and deported after serving 5 years. Jennifer never received the care she needed. She battled depression, post-traumatic stress, and began drinking and using drugs at just 11. She harmed herself multiple times and was hospitalized. On April 24, 2021, Jennifer joined her cousins and Lexia at a family gathering. Afterward, they bought a bottle of Hennessy, mixed drinks with Polar Pops, and drank throughout the night. At one point, they even stopped at a Waffle House before continuing on. Eventually, at a Circle K, Jennifer asked to drive Lexia's silver Hyundai Elantra. At first, Lexia hesitated, but she gave in. They got onto Interstate 4. Jennifer drove fast and filmed a Snapchat video showing the speedometer over 100 miles per hour. Soon, A state trooper tried to pull them over. Jennifer panicked. On probation and not even legally allowed to drive, she refused to stop. She turned sharply, sending the car off the road. It went airborne, hit a utility pole and palm tree, then flipped in the Gator Ford dealership parking lot. The impact was devastating. Lexia woke up on the pavement with broken legs. Pedro was trapped under the wreck, bleeding heavily. He died at the scene. Jennifer cried as she tried to pull him out, but then told Lexia to claim she had been the driver. She even walked toward the highway fence, saying she was on probation and not supposed to be driving. Troopers soon arrived, noting injuries consistent with her being in the driver's seat. Her blood alcohol level tested between 0.10 and 0.14. In court, Jennifer first rejected a 50-year plea deal. Eventually, she pled guilty to all charges. At her sentencing in May 2025, the courtroom was packed. Family members of both sides gave statements. Pedro's mother spoke of the pain her family lives with. Lexia described her lasting injuries and fear. Judge G. Gregory Green sentenced Jennifer to 67 years in prison, twice the recommended minimum. She will be nearly 80 before she's eligible for release. 2 lives are now gone. And Jennifer, who once had a second chance, will spend decades behind bars. It was June 7th, 2016, in Cooper Township, Michigan, a Tuesday evening in early summer. 9 cyclists gathered outside the Kalamazoo Health and Community Services Center. They called themselves the Chain Gang, a casual group of experienced riders who often biked together. That night, their plan was a familiar route to Plainwell. They were well prepared, helmets, reflective gear, and blinking lights on their bikes. The ride began like many others, quiet and orderly, with the group riding single file along Northwest Nidge Avenue. But within an hour, everything changed. About 30 minutes before the crash, several people called police about a blue Chevy pickup driving dangerously. One man said it nearly hit him while he walked home from fishing. Others described the truck swerving, speeding, and crossing lanes. But officers didn't reach it in time. At around 6:30 p.m., as the cyclists climbed a hill near the 5,500 block of Northwest Nidge Avenue, the same truck came from behind at nearly 60 miles per hour, almost twice the speed limit. Without braking or warning, it plowed straight into the riders. The crash was devastating. 5 cyclists were killed instantly. 53-year-old Deborah Ann Bradley, 42-year-old Melissa Ann Fevig Hughes, 73-year-old Fred Tony Nelson, 74-year-old Lawrence Larry Pollock, and 56-year-old Suzanne Zippel. The 4 others were thrown from their bikes, badly injured, some landing in ditches. Witness Marcus Eberhardt, walking nearby, recalled hearing someone yell, "Look out," before the truck barreled through. "What I saw, I never thought I would see," he said. The driver, 50-year-old Charles Pickett Jr., fled, but was caught shortly after. Witnesses described him as detached and confused. A search of his truck revealed a small bag of crystal methamphetamine. Tests later showed multiple substances in his system, including methamphetamine, amphetamines, hydrocodone, and muscle relaxers. He claimed he remembered nothing. Survivors endured long recoveries. Ride leader Jennifer Johnson woke up in a ditch with broken bones and lasting injuries, spending weeks in the hospital and months in a wheelchair. She lost her close friend Melissa Hughes in the crash. Others, like Paul Runnels and Paul Gobble, woke up days later with memory gaps, brain injuries, and lifelong struggles. Survivor Sheila Jeske recalled nothing after greeting the group that evening. Pickett faced 14 felony charges. During the 2018 trial, experts confirmed his high speed and drug use. Survivors testified about their injuries and losses. After just 4 hours, the jury found him guilty. Judge Paul Bridenstine sentenced him to 40 to 75 years in prison. Pickett, now in Thumb Correctional Facility, will not be eligible for parole until around 90 years old. The crash devastated Kalamazoo, a community already shaken by violence earlier that year. Memorial rides were held, and in 2018, a permanent tribute was placed at Mark and Glen County Park. Even cyclist Lance Armstrong publicly spoke about the tragedy. In the aftermath, the city made real changes. New bike lanes, traffic signals, and laws requiring drivers to give cyclists 3 to 5 feet of space. Since then, speeds across Kalamazoo have dropped slightly, but enough to save lives. Crash rates are down, even as more people ride. Still, the loss remains. 5 lives ended that night, and 4 others were forever changed. The chain gang no longer rides together, but Kalamazoo continues to honor those lost and work towards safer roads. It was November 17th, 2013, just after 1:45 in the morning. The streets of Coral Springs, Florida were quiet, but on the Sawgrass Expressway, headlights appeared, moving fast in the wrong direction. A Hyundai Sonata was speeding nearly 90 miles per hour, going east in the westbound lanes. At the same time, a red Toyota Camry was heading home in the correct direction. Inside were 2 best friends, both 21 years old, Caitlin Ferrante and Marisa Catronio. They had just celebrated Marisa's 21st birthday. Seconds later, the cars collided head-on. The crash was devastating. Marisa was killed instantly. Caitlin was rushed to the hospital but passed away 4 days later. The driver of the Hyundai was 20-year-old Kayla Mendoza. Hours before the crash, she had posted a tweet, "Too drunk, to care." Kayla lived in Coconut Creek, Florida. She was a student and worked part-time at a T-Mobile store. On Twitter, she called herself the Pothead Princess. Her posts often joked about drinking and drug use. She didn't have a valid driver's license and wasn't of legal age to drink. On November 16th, she went out with coworkers to a bar called Tijuana Taxi Company. Among them was her manager, Marcelo Bruzzo. Witnesses said Kayla drank 2 oversized margaritas, each with multiple shots of tequila. She even worried about being carded, but no one asked for ID. Later that night, Bruzzo dropped her off at her car, the last time anyone saw her before the crash. At 8 p.m., Kayla posted the tweet, "Too drunk, to care." Her boyfriend, Javier Reyes, later explained it wasn't random. He and Kayla had argued over text. He asked her to come home, but she said she was staying out. When she tweeted those words, she was upset with him. Hours later, she got into Javier's Hyundai Sonata, entered the Sawgrass Expressway the wrong way, and drove nearly 5 miles at speeds between 84 and 96 miles per hour. Her blood alcohol level was 0.15, almost double the legal limit. Marijuana was also in her system. When the crash happened, both cars were destroyed. Kayla survived but suffered broken legs and needed a wheelchair for over a year. Investigators interviewed Javier. Emotional, he blamed himself, saying he never should have let her take the car. He didn't know she didn't have a valid license. Kayla later claimed she had no memory of deciding to drive, saying, "After my manager dropped me off, things went black." In 2015, she pleaded guilty to 2 counts of DUI manslaughter. In court, the families of Caitlin and Marisa spoke directly to her, expressing their grief. On May 4th, 2015, she was sentenced to 24 years in prison, followed by 6 years of probation, and permanently banned from driving. Marisa's parents later founded Marisa's Way, a nonprofit educating young people about the dangers of impaired driving. 2 lives were lost that night, and a single reckless decision left a permanent impact on everyone connected to the case. It was June 15th, 2013, in Burleson, Texas. Pastor Brian Jennings had just wrapped up his son Evan's high school graduation party. He loaded folding chairs into his white pickup to return them to the church. A few houses down, Eric and Holly Boyles were relaxing with their 21-year-old daughter, Shelby. They had finished a fried chicken dinner and were watching a movie together. Meanwhile, 16-year-old Ethan Couch was hosting a party at his parents' second home. No adults were present. Teens drank heavily, playing beer pong and taking shots. The only one not drinking, Star Teague, asked Couch to drive her to a store. Friends told him not to drive, but he ignored them. 8 teens piled into his red Ford F-350. Around 11 p.m., the Boyles family stepped outside after hearing a crash. a 24-year-old woman, Brianna Mitchell, had broken down nearby in her Mercury Mountaineer. Shelby let her use her phone. At the same time, Pastor Jennings pulled over to help. He told the two boys riding with him to stay in the truck. Those were his last words to them. Couch was speeding down Burleson-Retta Road at nearly 70 miles per hour in a 40 zone, swerving and even playing chicken with oncoming cars. Teague shouted at him to stop. Then came the crash. Couch's truck slammed into Mitchell's SUV, striking Mitchell, Pastor Jennings, Holly Boyles, and Shelby Boyles. His truck then hit Jennings' vehicle, pushing it into oncoming traffic. One of Couch's passengers, Sergio Molina, was thrown from the truck and suffered permanent brain damage. Eric Boyles heard the impact from his home. He ran outside and found his wife gone. He searched for Shelby and found her 20 feet away by a fence. Kevin McConnell, Jennings' friend, arrived soon after. Seeing the folding chairs in the road, he realized what had happened. He tried CPR on Jennings, but it was too late. Jennings' wife Shauna arrived moments later to find her husband already gone. Not far away, a mother and son spotted a teenager in a ditch wearing only swim trunks. It was Ethan Couch. When he woke up, he told the boy, "I can get you out of all this," as if he didn't realize the boy wasn't involved. Tests showed Couch's blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. He also had marijuana and a sedative in his system. He was only 16, driving on a restricted license. 4 people lost their lives: Brianna Mitchell, Pastor Jennings, Holly Boyles, and Shelby Boyles. 9 others were injured, 1 permanently. Couch was charged with intoxication manslaughter and assault. Prosecutors sought 20 years, but his defense argued he was raised with wealth and no limits, claiming he needed treatment, not prison. Judge Gene Boyd sentenced him to 10 years probation and rehab. Public outrage followed. Families filed lawsuits that ended in settlements, though the Couch family admitted no fault. In 2015, Couch was seen drinking again. He fled to Mexico with his mother, Tanya, before being caught. He served 2 years for violating probation and was released in 2018 under strict monitoring. In 2020, he tested positive for THC and was briefly arrested again. His mother also faced more arrests. The Affluenza defense became infamous, symbolizing how money can sometimes shield someone from accountability. It was September 27, 2015, in Vaughan, Ontario, just north of Toronto. A minivan carried 6 family members, 3 children, their grandparents, and great-grandmother. They were heading home when tragedy struck. At the same time, a Jeep Cherokee sped through the intersection of Kirby Road and Kipling Avenue. The driver, going about 85 kilometers per hour, 53 miles per hour, ignored the stop sign and slammed into the side of the van. The crash was a violent T-bone collision that left the van mangled. Inside were the Neville Lake family. Daniel, 9 years old, loved ballet and scouts, and dreamed of writing a cookbook. His 5-year-old brother, Harry, had lost both hands due to medical issues, yet was cheerful and loved animals. Millie, only 2, adored hugs and kisses. Their grandfather, 65-year-old Gary Neville, was also with them. All 4 lost their lives that day. The children's grandmother, Nereza, and their great-grandmother, Josefina, survived but were badly injured. For their mother, Jennifer, the pain was unimaginable. She recognized her family's van on the news and later identified the bodies of her children and father. Her husband, Edward, was equally devastated. The driver was 29-year-old Marco Muzzo, heir to a wealthy Canadian family worth nearly $2 billion. The day before, he had been in Miami for his bachelor party, drinking heavily until 3 a.m. After flying home on his private jet, he admitted to continuing drinking and then taking a chance by driving himself from the airport. His blood alcohol level was nearly 3 times the legal limit. First responders described him staggering, slurring his words, and unable to stand on his own. He was arrested at the scene. News of the crash quickly spread, fueling outrage across Canada. The next day, Muzo's Jeep, held as evidence, mysteriously caught fire at police headquarters. The cause was never determined. In February 2016, he pleaded guilty to 4 counts of impaired driving, causing death, and 2 counts causing injury. A month later, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison and given a 12-year driving ban, the harshest sentence in Canada at that time for a first-time offender. During the trial, his history surfaced: past arrests for intoxication, threats against nightclub staff, and at least 10 speeding tickets. Even his mother once boasted on TV about reckless driving. The Neville Lakes later filed a $22.5 million lawsuit against Muzo and his family's company. In 2019, Jennifer posted a photo of her children's lunchboxes placed on their gravestone, writing that they should have been starting new school grades that year. Muzo's first parole request in 2018 was denied. By 2020, he was granted day parole, and in 2021, full parole with restrictions. Jennifer responded online, "My multiple life sentences will never end." The grief grew heavier. Jennifer miscarried at the same time her children were taken off life support. Edward struggled with mental health until June 20th, 2022, when he was found deceased at 49 years old. The day before, he had posted a photo of his children's tombstone. Jennifer later wrote that Edward had joined our kids so they can play together forever. Today, Jennifer continues honoring her family through a nonprofit called Many Hands, doing good, helping children heal through art and music. She has also pushed for stronger victims' rights in Canada. But the truth remains. One reckless decision by Marco Muzo destroyed an entire family, leaving scars that can never fully heal.